This is Regina from Wellspring Coaching, and I help people come back to life after hard times. And this is well tending. So the idea with well tending is to get really familiar with the practices that renew and sustain you. And this comes from the idea that we all have an inner well, and it's about revitalizing and refilling that inner well and bringing that water from deep inside of us out into the world. So what you're going to see is a recording from my well tending series talking about my Map Your Inner Well exercise. So you're invited to do the exercise, see what you learn, and then give me a call. I want to hear about it. Thank you for watching. We're here to bring structure to that question of how to access source. And I care about doing this not to like skip the liminal space, but how do we structure, how do we practice being able to dwell in that liminal space? So there's power in the personal and the particular, and the question of making it practical. As you can see in these pictures, like going to the well is an incredibly practical thing to sustain life. Like you literally going to get your water so you don't die. Like that is an image that speaks for itself. And what we're interested in building tonight is the practices and structures that help you access your inner well. So maybe something that's it sounds a little more abstract than going to the well like in these pictures. However, I believe in our capability to map it. So you can go ahead to the next one. All right. So go ahead and get out your journals, your paper, your pens. And we're going to start with a little bit of journaling and drawing with some questions that I have queued for you, and then we'll have a discussion. I also want to remind you that this is a process, and so it's like a series of actions and practices. I don't expect you to have all of the answers right this second, but I do care about you starting to ask the question. The well is an incredibly powerful tool that helps us access, like connect the surface to the source. And with this diagram, I want you to look at it and I want you to think about how it's not just this like one-step process. It's actually, there's 5 pieces here, right? So starting at the surface with an intention, diving deep with the descent, getting to source, practicing insight, then coming back up, and then the question of integration. So with your paper, go ahead and draw this diagram. You're welcome to do it in a way that makes sense to you, but it's important to have the 5 different pieces. I'd recommend also having a surface label and a source label, so you have some directionality here. And then let me know when you're done with drawing your version of this diagram. I want you to look at your diagram, and we're going to start at intention. I want to know what are the things that you do that help you connect with your intention. Intentions are starting places. They're the place of intended action, where an objective and a purpose and a plan start to take place. So start to list your practices that help you connect to intention. Another way to frame this question is, how do you connect to your core values and beliefs? Additionally, how do you practice awareness? Finish your last thought with your intention, and then start to think about the descent. So the descent is a verb, it's an action phrase, and it's about going in and down. And I want to know what practices you have that help you look inward and go deeper. I want to know how you hold any of the scary feelings that come up, any of the fear, the hesitation, or the uneasiness. How do you hold it? And I also want to know what helps make you brave enough to keep going inward and downward. As you answer this, try to keep it action focused. What are the things that you do? What practices do you have? And again, if nothing's coming up, just notice that there's a gap there. once you have spiraled in and down and found your way to source at the bottom of the well, how do you know when you're connected to source? What does it feel like? This is the realm of insight, of that deep wisdom and intuitive understanding of what it means to be a person. It's about inner sight. And I want to know what you do that connects you to source. And this can be a really helpful place to invoke the feeling of it. Like, what does it feel like to be connected to source? What does it feel like to just sit in that water in your body? Give me the specifics. So now thinking about how you have a bucket full of water, how did the ascent, this is the equal and opposite of the descent. And it's the question of coming back up from the depths. This is a question of alchemy, of seeing how the sacred and the mystical and the mundane and the physical are actually inextricably connected. So I want to know, what do you do to go from the depths back upward and outward? How do you re-emerge? And how do you carry the full bucket? How do you carry the source from the depths back to the surface? Another way to say it is, how do you hold on to your insight? So now that you're back at the surface with a full bucket, we have the question of, how do you apply what is sacred inside of you to the life of the world? How do you use the water that you found in the depths? What do you do with it once it's back up here, or up here for the first time? I also wanted to add this visual here to give you just some more visualization inspiration as you work with this framework of the empty bucket to the bucket in the water to the full bucket being pulled up, to the question of how do you use your water? And for me, this is a question, like, this process is about mystical hope. So looking at your map, tell me about an area of this well tending process that you're really strong in. Which part felt really good to you or easily accessible?